Hey, it's Random Code here, and today I want to showcase how we can relatively simply combine Java maps using streams. So we have this basic setup of a first map called animals, containing 3 animals, and for each of our maps, we're going to have the case of having some kind of string, defining the animal type, and an integer defining the count or the number or whatever, but just some integer, which will then be the one we will be combining. But at first, for our animals, we have a dog with count 10, cat count 100, elephant count 1. And for our second map, our more animals, we then also have a second elephant with a count 3 and a cow. The cases we will then be creating, which I found to be the most common, most interesting, is that when we need to combine our results, meaning our combined map should contain an elephant with the value 4, or when our combined map should contain the highest count. So let's say we have both elephant 1 and elephant 3. Our combined map should just contain elephant 3. And the way we do this is actually quite simple. We use the map.merge function. And the map.merge function would work by, if we actually just have now combined animals. So combined animals here already contains all animals from our first map. We could also do this in place, but just for clarity, I'm creating a new map containing a copy of all animals. But first, it just contained these 3 animals, but not these. We would then like to use our first combined animals dot merge, meaning we would like to merge some value into the combined animal map. But before we do this, we would actually like to go through all our not combined animals. So say all our more animals dot for each key value. So we're going to go through all the animals in our more animals map, and we then call these onto our combined animals map, meaning we one by one merge our first animal into our combined animals map, and then our second animal into our combined animals map. And we can then define, using merge, how we would like these to be merged. So we can add like a rule. But for simply just showcasing, we can simply add our key and value. And we then also need to define some kind of, how we're going to be using a lambda, but some kind of statement defining how do we actually merge these two values. Because obviously now there will be a merge conflict for elephant, and not defining any way of combining them would not work. So the simple way is that we would use a second lambda statement or expression. And I've seen in some cases they do like a v1, v2, for example. And what this then does is it simply gives us the ability to locate the values from our first and our second map when we have a merge conflict. And let's just do something crazy just to showcase that it actually works. We're going to simply define that when we have a merge conflict, we would like to set the value of our count to 5. And because we're using a lambda, we do not need to actually return any value. It's just done automatically. But we could also do a, let's call lambda expression. We will then simply return 5. And it's going to give the same result. And when we hover this, I think it would even suggest that we could use a lambda expression instead of a statement. So this is a statement, lambda statement, and this is a lambda expression. It does the same thing. But let me just showcase it work. So now we have copied all our animals into a combined animals map. Then print this animals combined map, showcasing we have all the first 3 animals. We then go through each of our element from our second map, using it for each, access the key and the value, so like the entry set for the more animals map. We then define that if there's no issue, just add them. So we get our cow with value 10. But for our elephant, where we have a value of merging, set the value to 5, which makes sense, and it showcases that it actually worked, but this does not find or solve our use cases. So let's actually try to solve the cases that we have beforehand. If we want to combine the counts, we would just very simply do v1 plus v2. And let me just showcase it work, and then we can discuss why it's being highlighted as not the most optimal way of doing it. But if we now print, we should get 4 plus 3 plus 1 equals 4. And what it's going to be telling us is that this could also be replaced with lambda because it's built into the integer. I mean, integer functions or methods that you can simply just do an integer sum, meaning we sum the two values. So the sum method simply just takes in two parameters and then returns the sum of these parameters. So we're just using a static method to do the same thing we just did. And at least from the perspective of IntelliJ, this is a bit cleaner. I think actually other ways a bit easy to read because we actually know exactly what's going on, but both things are doing the exact same. That would then be how we combine the counts. But if we then want to actually retrieve highest count, which I've seen to be actually a quite real use case quite often, where it might be maps not using a count, but maps using a timestamp, for example, and we would then like to return and merge the latest value, we would then, instead of just combining them and returning them, we can use a if statement or a one-line if statement. We'll be saying that if our v1 is larger than our v2, then return our v1, else return v2. And I would call this a ternary, because we're using this question mark, which I think is called a ternary operator. Simply meaning that I have a statement. If true, return the first one, otherwise return the second one. So it's just a very simple and shorthand for an if else. You could simply do if this, return this, else return this. So quite simple. And if we now then run our setup, we should see that our elephant is now having the count of 3. So that is our two basic cases. We simply go through each our animals in our second map and then combining them onto our first map or our combined animals map. But also here just replace it with animals and it will work the exact same, depending if you actually still want to modify the first map, or like in this case, we just copy all the elements and then modify combined animals map. We thereby keep our first map intact and could be reused for some other case. But that is very much the general showcase of how we combine two maps. I think this looks quite pretty. It's very simple. It's going to be very shorthand. Compared to doing it manually, we could do a bunch of for loops, then looping through them and doing the merge manually. This is actually a very, very useful statement and setup for most cases if we need to combine any kind of map. And having the ability to use the lambda expressions or statements to manually define how we want to combine them is actually very powerful, because we could do all kind of different stuff depending on our specific use case. So I hope you enjoyed this showcase of how we can combine maps in Java. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I wish you all a wonderful day.